Hello, I'm David Craig Utz, and I want to welcome you back to Foundations of Executive Presence, and we're on part 4 of the overview, and where we're going to talk about your primary power and how do you expand executive presence. So, what does one have to do to expand executive presence? It comes down to developing a relationship with something we already have full access to, and learning to allow this capability to be fully engaged. This is your greatest power upon which everything runs in your experience. With this power, you can be here now. You can be in the moment, fully present, which of course is an aspect of the conscious creative brain we talked about in part 2 of this overview. It sharpens your focus so that you can fully engage the law of focus in a conscious way. It increases confidence, enhances your ability to influence, and is a great place for de-stressing. In part 3, we spoke about how we live in two primary territories of experience: inner space, or where thoughts, feelings, and sensations reside, that all behind the eyes, and story space, which is about everything that happens in front of the eyes, that includes all circumstances, people, and outer objects. The experience we have happening from both story space and inner space is combined and filtered through our senses and interpreted by the mind machine. And again, the mind machine is akin to a human equivalent of artificial intelligence that is able to learn and form habits so that in theory we can survive and become more effective at interacting with our environment. And of course, the mind machine also has many other capabilities that include that it's very good at planning and being creative in problem solving. But pointing back to Robin Sharma's quote, "The mind is a wonderful servant but a terrible master," that means that there must be something else that is primary, that ought to be taking the lead. Without this something else, we would not experience anything shown currently on the slide. We would have no experience of story space, inner space, or any sense of the senses, seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, etc. And we would not be able to pay attention to what we're processing in our mind machine. So what is this primary aspect of being human that allows us to experience and to process ideas and to enjoy life? It is the aspect that shows up around this observer that takes everything in. It's almost as if there is somebody always standing behind you watching the entire show. This is easy to become aware of. Again, right now, you're aware of the screen in front of you and the slides that are being shown, the words you're hearing me say, as well as what you may be thinking about the words I'm saying. All of this is available to you because of awareness. The observer is directly connected and integrated to this broader awareness. As I noted, without awareness, we would experience nothing. Life would be akin to being in deep sleep all the time. And when we are what some call flow state, this part of us comes more to the forefront. And when you hear athletes talk about this state of flow, they talk about everything slowing down, that thinking almost stops. They have a broader view of the field of play, and something intuitively takes over that tends to lead to peak performance. And again, attention is the outer principle of awareness. While we do form habits of attention that become programs within the mind machine about what to pay attention to in certain circumstances, or when we're triggered or reacting to something, the conscious engagement of attention is a direct outer principle of awareness, not the mind. So the more we form a relationship with awareness, the greater is our capacity to direct conscious attention towards the things that matter most to us. Now, there's a key postulate that René Descartes in the 1600s became very famous for. I think, therefore I am. And this one phrase was accepted, and it's fed to many discoveries, but it also influenced Western thinking. And there is an error in this postulate. And many call this Descartes' error. What is true is that I am because I am aware. As I said earlier, you couldn't even notice that you were thinking if it was not for awareness. So awareness is primary and foundational in our experience as being human. And so this whole growth of self-awareness that many people talk about, a more direct way to understand it is it involves befriending the aspect of you who is already always aware. And as we develop that relationship, we invite it more to the forefront to serve us and, in a sense, reinforce the conscious, creative brain that I spoke about in part 2 of this overview. Now, the business impact of expanding self-awareness, interesting to point to. There is some research around this. And it says in one study of stock performance of 486 publicly traded companies, Korn Ferry found that companies with strong financial performance tend to have employees with higher levels of self-awareness than poorly performing companies. And research done by Harvard Business Review revealed that leaders with strong self-awareness were 36% more likely to generate high-quality decisions, 46% more effective in coordination, and 36% better at managing workplace conflict. And I would intimate from that, managing uncertainty and upheaval and disruption. Now let's do an exercise to bring awareness front and center. The instructions I'll share here are very simple and direct. And yet as simple as this exercise is, many times it creates ahas for those that go through the exercise and engage it earnestly. So I encourage you to give it a try. To do this, you simply have to follow my prompts. So first, what I want to ask you to do is simply look around the room and note several objects that you see in the room. The computer screen, something on your desk, etc. Now become aware of your eyes seeing those objects, or focus on the act or sense of seeing itself. Next, shift your attention to the sounds that are happening around you. It could be from the sound of my voice to anything else you're picking up in your environment, including if there's silence. Now become aware of that which is hearing those sounds, or focus on the act or sense of hearing. Next, notice any sensations you're feeling, like the sensation of sitting in your chair, maybe the movement of the air across your skin in the room, or the feel of your clothes, etc. Now become aware of the act of feeling those sensations. Bring your attention to this sense of feeling. Now bring your attention to what you're thinking right now. Notice any thoughts you're having in your mind. Now become aware that there's something that's aware or observing those thoughts, and put your attention on that observer part of you. Now, one final round. Look around the room again, and instead of labeling and describing the objects you see, simply observe the fact that in this moment, you are aware of observing both your sight or seeing and the objects you're seeing. Connect to that observer who is aware of the entire playing field, of both the objects and the sense of seeing. Now, what we were doing in the first few rounds is that we were examining various objects that were being picked up by one of your senses. For example, the things you were seeing, hearing, feeling, or thinking. And then in each of those rounds, we turned our attention towards the act of the sense being used to note those objects. For example, the eye seeing, the ears hearing, the feeling of sensations. Now in the final round, and a little bit in the round around thinking, I brought your attention back again to sight or thinking, but we were also putting your attention on awareness itself. The idea that while we were seeing objects or thinking, we were aware of seeing and thinking. We were aware that there was something observing what we were seeing or thinking. So let me ask you, did you notice any difference between when I ask you to notice objects of seeing, hearing, and feeling and thinking versus when I ask you to become aware of the agency of those senses, like hearing itself, seeing itself, feeling itself, etc.? And when I ask you to become aware of what was seeing and noticing the object seen, what did you notice? Now, for many, there is a distinct and sometimes subtle difference between noticing objects in our awareness versus the agencies that notice those objects, or the senses that notice those objects. Some say that there is a sense of moving backward from the objects of the senses to awareness itself. And that when that happens, they feel more spaciousness, expansion, choice, and relaxation. Now, when we move towards becoming aware of our awareness, in a sense, we're zooming out to see more of the playing field. And when we focus on the objects of our attention, whether that be seeing the computer screen, listening to the concepts that I'm sharing, or thinking through something, we're zooming in and noticing less. The main takeaway here is the fact that of the matter that once you place your attention on awareness on something, there it is. It takes the whole mystery out of what it takes to be self-aware. Right now, you are self-aware. Thus, achieving self-awareness is not something you have to develop. Rather, it is more a matter of building a more conscious relationship with your awareness that's already always there. Initially, this does take effort, but like anything else, we can train our attention to go there. And when we do, it becomes second nature. And when that happens, we get all the benefits I shared about earlier in part 4. Ultimately, we want to get in touch with the fact that each sense is limited to what it senses. The eyes can only see, the nose can only smell, the feeling sensation can only feel, and the mind can only think. In addition, our mind can think, but it has no direct ability to be aware of itself. The only thing that can be aware is that observer in ourselves. However, awareness can be aware of all the senses and our thinking, and where the senses and thinking are limited to their function. Now, awareness can be aware of all of them, and awareness is the only aspect of itself, ourselves, that can be aware of itself. That's self-awareness. So the only aspect of ourself that can be aware of itself is awareness. I want to emphasize, your thinking mind can't be aware of itself. Your senses can't be aware of themselves. And we can't be aware of what's happening in story space and inner space. So the more we are able to build this relationship with awareness, the more all the functions that are unaware can be used more effectively. That's the point. So let's talk about what it takes to expand self-awareness given all that. First, it's realizing you're already always aware. There's nothing you have to develop. Developing self-awareness is a misnomer. It's developing a relationship with that which is already always there. Second, creating time and space to quietly reconnect with your awareness. As powerful as it is, it's also very subtle, and the mind can overshadow it. So finding time and space to connect with your awareness and build a relationship with this awareness is what you need to do that will help it become more in the forefront when you're in activity. Understanding that which blocks your ability to be self-aware is allowing the automatic pilot thinking to run roughshod and hijack our attention. So that's what's happening when we're in a meeting, we're very centered, and somebody says something that triggers us, and all of a sudden we're sucked into the mind machine that's judging that, for example, or saying, I can't believe they said that. Or the other side of that is, wow, they're so smart, I'm wondering if I can keep up with them. Both of those reactions are coming from the mind machine. It's just objects inside, and you lose touch with awareness in those situations, right? Now, the final one is, as self-awareness expands, it's important to appreciate and enjoy what greater awareness brings to you. You remember from the story that I told in part 1 of Kathy, as she began to practice this, even though she had hesitancy at first, she found the practices were relaxing and somewhat enjoyable, and this itself spurred her on to continue with the practices. Now, what are the key practices that are contained into the program that I'm going to invite you into trying and participating in? There's two categories. There's a passive category, which is maintaining awareness and building a relationship with awareness at rest. And there's active, which is maintaining awareness while in activity. The passive practices are meditation or sitting practice, journaling and reflection. And the active practices are what I call mindfulness practices on the run. And they're integrated into your day that quickly reconnect you to presence throughout your day. They don't take any time or very little time and can be easily integrated between meetings or in the actual activities that you're doing. Now, I want to share a quote from Tom Gardner, who's a key founder and CEO of Motley Fool. I had the great privilege of meeting Tom at an event one night, and I asked him if he'd be open to me interviewing him about leadership. And he was kind enough to give me some time to interview him. And one of the questions I asked him that I engage with the senior leaders a lot that I work with is, when you face crisis, or when you're facing something that in a sense pulls the rug out from under your feet, what's the first thing that you do, or what strategy do you follow? Tom said something very interesting to me. He said, whenever I'm facing unexpected challenge in our business, I first shut my door and spend some time meditating before I call on my team to address the situation. Now, it turns out Tom was a long-time meditator and had developed a real appreciation for the practice because of what it gave him. He's also consistently has a 100% approval rating as a CEO, and of course has had a great track record of success at Motley Fool. So here's somebody that gets it, right, and has integrated this into their life. Now, it's going to take some effort to fully leverage this course and evolve beyond engaging the survival reactive mindset so much, or brain so much. But as the client story I shared in part 1 demonstrates, the effort is well worth it. And I promise you that the value of regular executive presence practices only expands over time. In fact, every moment you spend in those practices are cumulative and act like a great investment. There's been some great work done around growth versus autopilot, or fixed, what some people call fixed mindset. And these mindsets are similar and aligned to the two different brains I had already spoke about in part 2. Yet point to the attitude and actions we can take to develop a more conscious, creative approach to our roles as executives, managers, and business owners. A growth mindset thrives on challenge and the belief that there's always more you can do than you think you can do, irrespective of your setbacks. Conversely, a fixed mindset is characterized by more rigid thinking and a belief that what you know now is all you can or need to know. It tends to thrive on the survival reactive brain. So let's look at some key characteristics of a growth mindset that'll serve you as you engage these practices and in your work as a leader in your organization. So key characteristics of growth mindset include the ability to understand why you lead and who you most desire to be as a leader. Framing what you're going to grow around is essential, right? Why am I doing this growth? Why am I doing this meditation and these different practices that I'm going to be recommending? Why am I thinking about my day differently? You have to have a reason for it, and that's what this number one does for you. Number two, it helps you expand self-awareness. It's engaging an open mind. It's being more open, not fixated on a particular way I think about things. It's becoming comfortable with discomfort of ambiguity and uncertainty. It becomes comfortable being uncomfortable as you engage the growth mindset. It's focusing on strong relationships, building strong relationships and interdependence. And it's taking ownership and being accountable for your actions. And finally, it's becoming clear on expectations and needs, both yours and others. We're now wrapping up the overview. So what the Foundations of Executive Presence course provides from here is, of course, you've seen this overview, right? It provides an exercise to develop your leadership vision, which is the context for everything around executive presence. It's what you want to bring to the world, the qualitative way you want people to experience you and experience being around you, what you want to forward in your vision, etc. It includes a couple guided meditations that strengthen your relationship with self-awareness. It includes mindfulness on the run practices that support you in quickly remembering self-awareness during the day. And it includes a morning and evening reflective journaling exercises. And my commitment is that over time, I will continually upgrade this program. So once you have access to it, you'll be able to come back as things are refreshed. So next steps in the process is spend some time getting to know the tools that are in the course. The leadership vision exercise, the guided meditations, the mindfulness practices, and the morning and evening routine exercise. Start by engaging at least one practice daily and commit to it for 30 days. That's what I recommend. Notice the shifts that occur from that. And I recommend actually, if you're willing to start with the guided meditation, the meditation exercise, because that really is the heart of the program. Notice the shifts that occur because that's important to reinforce the value of doing it. Build a repertoire of practices that most foster conscious engagement in your leadership role. So that's pretty much it. I want to thank you for watching this overview, and I hope that you really enjoy the course, and I welcome your feedback. And again, if you're somebody that is getting to these overview videos because you found it on my YouTube channel or through some social media post, and you're interested in gaining access to the course, there's a link below that allows you to sign up for the full course. And further, if you'd like to talk to me more about this, I offer a free, no obligation leadership discovery call to anybody that wants to talk to me and explore. And one of the areas you could explore is, how do I develop more consciously and strategically my executive presence? But those leadership discovery calls are aimed to support you around any aspect of your leadership that you want to discuss. My promise when you walk out of that call is that you'll walk away with something that's actionable, that's practical, that you can do, and that will clear up a key matter you may be facing in your executive role or in your role as a business owner. So again, thank you very much for watching this overview, and I look forward to hearing from you and hearing back your feedback on what you found in the program. Have a great day.